My name's Mark, and you're listening to Head Straight. Hello, you lot, and welcome back to this Season 4 introduction. Now, what we're talking about in this season is all about when change doesn't feel the way that you thought it would. Because most people imagine change as a clear moment, like a decision or a switch flipping or a feeling like something finally makes sense, a feeling that all of a sudden the world just clicks into clear view. But for a lot of people, change doesn't arrive like that at all. It arrives quietly. You start doing things differently, not in a big way, but just enough that something shifts. And instead of feeling confident or proud, you notice something else. Things feel awkward. Some people react differently to you. Some situations feel slightly off. You're not the same, but you're not sure what that means yet. Now, this can be confusing, and if no one talks about this part, it's really easy to assume that you've done something wrong. Season 4 exists because that assumption is usually false. Now, when people talk about growth, they usually focus on the beginning, the moment you decide to change, the first steps, the feeling of motivation. But very little gets said about what happens after that, when other people start noticing, when things don't fall into place neatly, when progress isn't obvious, or when effort starts to creep in. That in-between stage can feel a bit weird and a bit lonely. Not because you're alone, but because it's harder to explain where you're at. You might feel like you've stepped slightly out of sync with the world that you were used to. Not fully disconnected, just not fully settled. This season is about that space. Now, one of the first surprises that often happens is how change affects other people. Sometimes they comment, or sometimes they don't. Sometimes they joke about it, or sometimes things just feel different. And that can be really uncomfortable. It can make you second guess yourself. It can make you wonder if being different has cost you connection. Season 4 doesn't tell you to ignore that feeling, and it doesn't let you panic about it either. It helps you to understand why this happens and why it doesn't automatically mean that you're losing something that you shouldn't be. Now, after that initial shift, things often go quieter in a way that's hard to describe. Not dramatic, not obviously bad, just changed. You might feel slightly more separate. You might miss how things used to be. You might feel unsure without quite knowing why. This season makes space for that. Not to fix it, not to rush past it, but to say this is part of the change for a lot of people. And it doesn't mean that the change was a mistake. This season also talks about how doubt often shows up after progress, not before it. A small slip, or maybe an off day, or a reaction you thought you were past. Suddenly, your brain jumps ahead. Oh, what's the point? Maybe nothing's really changed. This season slows that moment down. It looks at why setbacks can feel heavier after you've started to grow, and why they don't always mean what you think they mean. Now, as change continues, it often becomes harder to see. Not because it stops, but because it starts working quietly. Reactions don't last as long. Things don't spiral as far as they did before. You recover without thinking about it too much. And because that doesn't feel impressive, it can be easy to miss. This season helps you notice those quieter signs without turning them into something that you have to track or prove. And at some point, even positive effort can start to feel heavy. Not overwhelming, just wearing. You're tired of checking yourself. You're tired of thinking about how you reacted. You're tired of turning every moment into something to learn from. Season 4 talks honestly about that tiredness. Not as burnout, not as failure, but as a normal stage, where growth is ready to carry itself a little more. Towards the end of the season, the focus shifts again. Away from effort and self-checking towards living. This season isn't about holding on tightly. It's about learning when to loosen your grip. So just to say, you don't need to listen to the episodes in order. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to agree with everything. Let it be company, not homework. Some episodes will land, some won't. That doesn't mean anything about you. If something matters, it'll stick around quietly and maybe show up later. Now, before you start with episode 1, there's one final thing that matters. If you're in the middle of change and things feel awkward or slower than expected, maybe less clear or more tiring than you imagined, that doesn't mean that you've messed up. It usually means that you've reached the part that people don't warn you about. That's the space that this season sits in. No rush, no fixing, no pressure. Just a steadier understanding of what the middle of change really looks like. And we're going to start there. So, are you up for it? Of course you are.